Got dreams of being a professional podcaster, but have no idea what you're doing?
This is impossible.
That's about to change.
A new kind of school.
Welcome to the Pod School Podcast.
Hello there, welcome to the show. Today I'm going to be talking about podcast names and whether if you've picked one that you're like, yes, this is it, I've found my perfect name, and then you search for it in your podcast app and somebody beats you to it. Can you still start your show, or do you have to choose another name? Well, you can technically, because podcast names don't work quite like URLs do, where there is one version of the .com or the .com.au or the whatever it is. And if you're first in, best dressed, it is yours until you decide to relinquish it. It doesn't work that way with podcast titles. So you can technically have multiple shows, and there are multiple shows out there that have the same name. The question is really, should you do it? Is it the smartest strategy if you want your podcast to grow? One of the things that can be a problem if you have the same name as another show is just the basic confusion when people come to find your show. If you tell people the show name and there are multiple versions of that, how are they going to know unless your pretty face is on the cover? And even then, they might not know what you look like. How are they going to choose the right show? And if it becomes a bit hard to find you, for any new listeners, where they kind of go searching to look and then they're like, hang on a minute, there's 9 different shows called that. Which one is it? It's pretty easy for them to go, bugger this, and not bother listening to your show. So that can sometimes be a bit of a hurdle to get new listeners. And ideally, you don't want to put any hurdles at all in front of new listeners. You want it to be really simple to find your show, really simple to listen and subscribe. And sometimes that confusion can make it tough. The exception is probably if there is a show that exists that has pod faded out, like so many before. So one of the things you will know a lot if you listen to the show often is that there are so many more podcasts that no longer produce shows than there are shows that are actively releasing episodes. So there's every chance that somebody who's created a show with your show name might have died off in the past. And you can then jump in and take up that space if you'd like. Ideally, you want to be the only podcast with that name, but this is one of those cases, I think, where you can probably get away with it. And maybe if they've got all of the social media handles or the website, you might be able to contact them and ask them if you could buy them off them or have them. Be warned that as soon as somebody who owns a website realizes that somebody else wants it, the price really goes up from the low rate of 99 cents that you can buy some domains for. So just be mindful of that. But if a show's died out, then you can jump on there, because it's unlikely, especially if it dropped off a while ago, that they would be competing in search as much, although it does depend on how popular that podcast was when it was actually released. So that's the other issue actually with the social media handles and the website, is if you are choosing a name that exists somewhere else, it might be quite tough for you to get those things for your show. And ideally, it's a great idea to have a website at a bare minimum for your podcast. And if you want to do social stuff that doesn't work on your personal profile, you want to have a separate social channel for your show, then it's always nice to have those handles and even just get them in case you want to use them in the future. And that might not be possible if somebody has already called their show that. So that's another thing to take into consideration. If you love your show name so much and you think that there is no other show name for it, I would say that that's not always true. There are always ways that you can think about it that can be different to what you thought. And one good idea is to look at synonym websites. So you will put a word into a synonym website and it'll throw up a bunch of words that mean the same thing but are just different words. And that can actually lead to a more creative version of what you had in the first place. Sometimes you might go a little bit literal with your show name idea, and a synonym website might help you to throw up some other options. So actually, if you choose a certain name, you look at your podcast app and it already exists, sometimes that can help you to push your creative juices a little bit further and think of something that might be even better than the show name you originally came up with. I hope that's helped you if you have got a bit of a conundrum about your show name. It's always a bummer, I know, when you think, oh, yes, the genius light bulb has finally gone on, and then you realize that some other genius had the idea before you did. So all is not lost. The thing about creative ideas is if you're capable of coming up with one, you're definitely capable of coming up with more than that. If you want a little bit more help with your show, my online podcasting course, Pod School, is currently open for enrollments. Doors shut on the 10th of July, so that anybody who is looking for a pre-tax and post-tax expense in Australia, you can get your hands on it before or after the end of financial year. My course is really a step-by-step guide through absolutely everything everything from coming up with an idea all the way through to getting your show recorded in a really high quality way, editing it so that it sounds professional, growing your audience so it's not just your mum listening, even though we love your support, mum. Thanks very much. And then turning your show into a business if that's what you want to do. You can find out all the details at podschool.com.au, and I would love to see you inside the course so that I can help you get your podcast started. I'll see you next week, and until then, happy podcasting.
That's all for today.